some of your early stone fruits, I guess you could say, when they'll tend to want to bloom as soon as you get a little bit of warm weather. And what happens is, just like the soybeans planting in the ground, you never know what's going to happen after that. And generally what happens is a frost. So using that product for frost protection has been a big help for my produce guys and for my orchards. I just talked to a guy here 2 days ago that was in my orchard a year ago, and I was telling him about it because he was really impressed with the apples. And of course, I had a couple peach trees that were loaded with peaches in this area. Last year, we got hit with a late frost, or early frost, excuse me. So, I had something. He was wondering how I got the peaches and the apples like I did. And, I kind of think I got them because of the foliar spraying right ahead of the frost. And we've had that experience over the years with orchards and with produce, using it as a frost protection. And how that works is, if they're calling for a frost, we generally go in anywhere from 5 hours ahead to as much as an hour ahead of the frost. I had one customer tell me that he sprayed his with the frost on it and pulled them out of it. So I've heard a lot of different things on that as far as the benefits of helping that way with the frost protection. Mm-hmm. And if a person asked me when's the best time to get it on there, I'd say anytime you can before the frost is coming. And to say there's an exact time that works the best, I don't know. I've heard all different ranges in that, as far as when's the best time. And of course, having the calcium in the soil, that's a big benefit to it too, because the water relationship with calcium and how it gets in the plant with calcium in the soil and without the calcium in the soil. So, but yeah, we do. We here mainly on my farm, we're corn, soybeans, hay, wheat, and I use it on all them crops. My grass crops, I do put nitrogen on, but we've always used nitrogen at half the rate of what they recommend. And I got a lot of customers that kind of jokingly say that too, that they use it, their nitrogen at half the rate that it's recommended if they're using growers. So I don't know, there's something you're thinking of that you said something about a wide range of specialty crops or whatever that, is there anything in particular, Zach, that you're thinking of that maybe I'm not bringing up?
You've covered it well, but do you still work? I think is it Huber's Winery?
Yep. Grapes. I forgot about grapes. What they like to do is get it on early, promote the budding. And I really haven't heard on frost protection. Peaches, they got a lot of peaches down there, and they will tend to try to get it on if they got a frost coming. Of course, last year on their peaches, they didn't get it on whenever they wanted to because there was a real strong wind that day, and they lost a lot of them. So I guess it was a year before. It wasn't last year. The 2021 crop was real good, they told me. But yeah, and they just mix the growers in with, they're usually out spraying the orchard just about every week with something. And same with the produce guys, they'll spray about every week. So they always try to incorporate the growers in with their spraying program. It works real good for that.
That's great. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll go further east and we'll hit up Larry Webb.
Hey, Zach, how's it going tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming on, Larry. So Larry is a DM.
In the mail.
Pardon?
The bill's in the mail.
It shouldn't take long to get here. Larry is a DM up here in Canada with me. He lives, I don't know, be 40 minutes away maybe from where I live. And he covers a pretty good sized area for Ontario. And Larry is well known in Ontario and beyond for dealing with a lot of niche crops, be it different produce, different veggies and such, or hazelnuts is an up and coming one. So Larry, if you could talk on some of those crops and how you've seen growers used on them, and give a brief intro to yourself if I missed anything too.
Oh, well, that's fine. No problem. Yeah, so I basically, guys, I get bored. So the corn and the soybean thing is kind of fun, but I get bored. So I go looking for different things. And a few years back, I come across hazelnuts. So I've been doing a bunch of stuff with that. I've just started doing another experiment on Haskap berries. You may know them as honeyberries. And I think they're going to be quite it's an up and coming crop here, and it's something that I think will benefit very nicely tie into the growers program. And we should see nice results out of that too in a year or two once I get something going. But basically, I spoke to a lot of you guys back a couple of years ago down at the annual meeting, and it still holds true. And if it's got roots and it's got a stem and it's got leaves on it, growers will work. And take what Doc and Wilbur and Joe Henry and that Hallbison guy keeps cranking on our ears. Take their words to heart, and don't be scared of it. There's a lot of things you can fix with a gallon to the acre. Take it away, Zach.
Thanks, Larry. Tell me a story about how you've seen some hazelnut farms turn around, hazelnut orchards turn around. There's one guy you work with quite closely, right?
Oh yeah, that's Les is doing really well. He's running about 90 acres of hazelnuts. They're year 10 down to about year 6, and quite an assortment of varieties. And this year he was over 10,000 pounds in yield, and he is sold on growers. It just does the ticket for him, and it's working really well. He's running like a 2% solution, so like 2 gallons and 100 gallons of water sort of thing. And a couple of years ago, springtime, things were a little tough, so he went all the way up to a 3% solution. And then 3 or 4 days that had turned the trees around and they were all happy again. So, sometimes it doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just a little bit extra that'll push it over. It's kind of neat how well the product works, and it's not like you have to put thousands of gallons on to get a result. It just takes very little and nicely applied. And I think it was Mike was talking about spoon feeding. Let's do the spoon feeding thing. It takes more time, but it pays. It pays dividends.
One last question too, Larry. Are you still
Zach,
working
you're
with?
getting to be a nuisance.
Yeah, no, sorry. That's kind of the job of the host. If you guys tune into the research call, I don't do much talking there, so you might enjoy it more. But are you still working, Larry, with he was the big cabbage guy?
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually, I think Jim's got us signed up for July or something conference call.
Oh, sweet. July. We're not okay.
So it's somewhere around in there that Jim was asking about that.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll leave it for then. Thanks a lot, Larry.
Don't want to give it all away.
No, heaven forbid. We'll run out of things to talk about.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Larry.
Right.
All right, we'll go John next. That's John Sensenig. I'll wait for him to come on before I give any introduction.
I'm here.
Hey, John. So John is a district manager in New York. He's been with growers a long time. He's been very successful with it. A huge repository of knowledge. So I'm not going to say much more, John, because I don't think it would do it justice. But I know you quite a wide range in New York geographically and in terms of crops. So same kind of thing as the other guys, dealing with more specialty crops or niche. We can talk about more common crops if you want to, if you've had a lot of success with those.
Oh, I'm John Sensenig from New York here, Romulus, New York, Central New York. I moved up here in 1976, and we've been using growers up here ever since that. So we use it on the wheat, on the corn, soybeans, and alfalfa, and do a lot of nutrition work with the cows there, and that's been a good thing over the years. So I cover a little bit of New England states, and a little bit of northern Pennsylvania, get down to part of New Jersey a little bit, but back on the soybeans there, I highly agree with Zach there. I think I would rather foliar feed and skip the planting. That's the way I look at the soybeans. And alfalfa, I like to try and get like at least 3 sprays per year on for the alfalfa there. So 6 to 9 gallons, whatever you got to get on there. So
Yeah.
and,
Do you
corn,
do one when do you typically do those then, John?
As soon as it greens up, after a week or 10 days after make the hay, when it starts greening up, get out there, get her sprayed on there. So
You could do one when it breaks dormancy in the spring.
we don't usually. Usually don't warm up that fast, and it also is oftentimes a little bit wetter. It's sort of hard to get out. The fields are softer, and so we sort of oftentimes wait on that there. But if the weather's right, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
depends on the weather. So
Do you work with a bunch of apple orchards or few in Eastern New York?
I work with some orchards, yeah.
How's that gone?
That's going real well. Yep, they're happy with that, and they have worked with some peaches and some apples and cherries. The one guy has sour cherries and sweet cherries, so he's doing real well with that there. So he actually had Jim was with me out there. We had he had about 2 acres out of 20 acres. He had about 2-3 acres that the trees were just going backwards a little bit, and they were sort of losing out, and normally they'd have to dig them out and start over. But he went in there after listening to Jim there. He went and put 15 ton of high cal lime on the cherry orchards there between the trees there, and within 3 years those trees were all back to normal again. He didn't have to replace them at all, so he was pretty happy with that. So the rest of the orchards all got 15 ton of high cal lime, so he thinks that's a big way to go. So
Yeah.
Let me work with some vegetable farmers and quite a few dairy, specialized in dairy somewhat. So
Yeah, we haven't Loren talked more about the crop side of dairy. John, I know you do the nutrition work, rations and stuff. Can you speak to using GMS in the feed as a supplement?
Well, I think what you're really actually doing is just replacing dry phosphorus with liquid phosphorus for dry phosphorus, and then we're also usually cutting out the trace minerals. I usually let the AD and E and selenium got to let in there, and then you got to let a little salt in there and the calcium in there. But I just think it's healthier phosphorus. They can digest it better and utilize it better, and you do the manure studies and stuff, the phosphorus will be lower in the manure, so it's definitely the cows are using the phosphorus instead of passing it through. And so there's a big advantage there. And then you often find the cows that eat a little bit less dry matter and make just as much milk. And I think it's because of the digestibility. So, but it's very important to keep the calcium level up too. Like Dr. Reams and Albright said years back, you'd have a 15-to-1 cal-mag ratio in the soil to get a good digestible forage. And there's a lot of truth to that, because people that have their fields up there at 15-to-1 or 20-to-1, you can definitely feed a much higher 4-H diet than you can with the lower rates. If you have a 5-to-1, 6-to-1 cow-mag ratio, you're going to have to feed a much higher grain diet to make milk. That's been proven. So
That's good to know. Yeah, I've seen the
Other than that,
effects here in Ontario of having a high quality feed versus having to supplement too much.
how was that again?
I said I've seen the positive effects up here of having a high quality feed rather than having
Oh yeah,
to add in a
Yeah.
ton of supplements or feed a lot more grain.
yeah. And you can feed an average of 3 to 4 pounds less dry matter and get the same job done. So
Yeah.
other than that,
Thank you,
I ain't got
John.
a whole lot more unless there's any questions. So.
I think we'll go to Daniel and then we'll open it up for questions. And I've got another line of questions lined up if we've got time. But yeah, Daniel Weaver, he is a district manager in Georgia, covers a big area in the south. Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know most of Georgia into Alabama. I don't remember if you cover any of Florida or not, or South Carolina. But anyway, again, works with a lot of different crops. Daniel spends a lot of time on the road, spends a lot of time with his customers. So take it away, Daniel.
Yeah, you missed a couple states. I do a good bit of Mississippi and all of Tennessee. I'm on the road way too much, but I cover a wide variety of crops. It's not, there's a few crops we don't grow here, but some of the special crops here compared to the north, we do a lot of peanuts, a lot of cotton, then a lot of corn. We do beans. I have a lot of produce people. And right now we're working a lot with peach people. I've had, I don't know how many calls in the last few days. We're supposed to have our peach trees are blooming and it's supposed to be a 22, 23, 24 degree cold on Sunday morning. And people are calling me wanting to know what to do. And I know all of y'all out there would have a perfect answer. I don't, but I just say spray growers, and that definitely makes a difference. But it does come to a point where I don't care what you put on, it won't keep it from freezing. I do also, so far as minerals, we have very few small dairies left in our part of the state. It's the real large dairies. So I do more beef cattle than I do dairy cattle. The feed mill that we have, we mix growers right into the feed for the beef cattle and also some dairy, but not a lot of dairy anymore. But I sell a fair amount to beef cattle people, and I don't know, it's just we've had some good results. We do pecans, we do watermelons, cantaloupes, all vine crops, just a broad variety of crops. And I just hadn't found anything that don't work on if you do it right. One thing some of the others are talking about putting a gallon on. I'm learning that you can do a gallon, but my question would be to a lot of the other DMs, do your people do that with just growers and a gallon, or are they using a lot of other fertilizers too? We do have a lot of chicken litter usage here in our area. I can take chicken litter out and put just growers in, and I can usually increase the yield on corn or almost whatever. And that depends also somewhat on how they use their chicken litter. So I have a broad variety of things to cover, and it keeps me busy.
What would be a typical program you'd recommend on cotton and peanuts?
Well, basically what I would recommend, and most people are not set up for that on peanuts, peanuts don't take a lot of fertilizer. A lot of people don't fertilize their peanuts except for do it behind another crop. But what I like to do if they can is do one of them 1 gallon things in the row or beside the row on peanuts, and then foliar feed 2 or 3 times, 2 times at least, and depending on what the crop looks like, times at 1 gallon each time on the peanuts. Cotton is a little bit more. I like to put 2 gallons beside the row, and then maybe 2 foliar sprays at the right time of 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons each time. Last year, I had the first cotton field that we actually done a side-by-side test on compared to other fertilizers. And this is a guy that's very skeptical about using growers, and I've been piddling with him for 10 years, and he's getting to where he's using a little bit. But he done it on his cotton side by side, where the other fertilizer made 1,300 and let me see, I don't remember the exact amounts, but 1,300 and some pounds per acre. Ours made 14, it was 140 pounds more on ours side by side. And he called me up about that. He usually won't call me about anything, but he was tremendously excited about that. So that I finally got him to actually weigh it.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. All right, we got about 20 minutes. I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you're on a computer or a smartphone, there's a little mic in the bottom left. If there's a red line through it, you're muted. So just click that to unmute yourself. If you're on a phone, hit *6 to unmute.
You know, I just wanted to say, while we got a second here to wait,
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
on that gallon an acre thing, I mean, usually that's per week on foliar and with produce. You know, there's just like with the soybeans, I'm sure then the guys that putting a gallon on are putting more on afterwards with the foliage. I just wanted to say that second.
Well, yeah, for myself, I mean, for produce, I tell them put 2 gallons a week on during crop development time.
All right, Jack Cashmitter has a question. Jack, I think you're unmuted, so you can go ahead and talk.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm worked with Loren Scherping doing some foliar spraying here in Minnesota. I'm about 10 miles south of Loren. Just a little, let's call it a little testimonial to using it for dairy livestock. I've seen it on this farm. We got started in 1996, and we used to always have to push some old hay in a 60-foot barn to one end of the barn, and you took the old stuff and you threw it out to the cattle. And since I've been starting to spread lime and growers use on that hay, we actually ended up with very little waste after these years. And I'm grateful that I found your company how many years ago, and I broadcast on for my corn. I'm not a real big lover of soybeans. I'm a lover of raising hay on my farm here, just a little over 200 acres with irrigation. I can produce very good hay crop. I got a guy that I sold my cows 2 years ago after my dad passed away, and we are in the process of getting more hay ground established and kind of going away from soybeans a little bit, because I feel the revenue is going to be better than producing 50 to 60 bushel beans on this farm. So the growers has been a standard here. Even had a question from a former farmer: you still use that stuff? I says, absolutely. I says, it doesn't corrode my corn planter. The corn planter was bought brand new the last year my dad farmed in 1991. I took over in 92, and the system is all still intact, and guys that have come to my farm have seen how nice a color that corn planter looks. And I'm not maybe the favorite kind of a corn planter, but it's a number 900 international planter, and I've had success with that planter and using using the lime. I've even this last summer between second and third cutting, I think I put on about 3.5 tons of lime according to the weight of the semis that were hauled here. And the interesting part I found last December, I attended a meeting in the great state of Iowa with a friend of mine, and he sent a book home with me that says When Weeds Talk. And it's kind of interesting that the common dandelion has a source of setting a root very deep to pull the calcium to the soil. And this is the interesting part, is when it pulls that calcium to the soil after it dies, it allows the calcium that it pulled to the soil to be used for the next crop. Now, many of fields in this Stearns County area, you know, they're blended into their mind. They got to put all this extra dry fertilizer on that I can see that creates an environment for dandelions where I've got the guy that bales my hay into a baleage, a higher moisture hay crop, keeps telling me, how do you keep producing 5 bales of 800 pounds an acre per crop, you know? Now, with that in mind, we've got an established price in it, and if you take 3 crops, which I done, you take 15 bales an acre times the wet poundage on each bale. You know, we've got some quality crop here where I've been selling it to a dairy farmer about 24 or 25 miles west of me, and the last stuff he picked up, I could tell his body language was like, you got some pretty good hay here. I want some more next year. So that's kind of a blessing in that. So I'm going to tell myself to stop talking because I have got such great workings with your company, your staff, the DMs, Jim Halbison, and Dave MacGyver out west of me, Loren Scherping. I showed Loren, his brother, this last fall one time. I says, Laverne, I says, let's go look at that where I pulled a plow along the hayfield. And I says, you know, I never measured that depth, and moldboard plow I didn't even realize that I was down 11 inches with that plow, and it just didn't chip out of the field. So the aeration of this soil has really helped my farm out. So thank you, gentlemen. You can mute me out or I'll do it myself. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jack. All right, are there any other questions for any of these DMs or comments like that, testimonies? Well, surprised, guys. 5 DMs here, different regions. Take advantage of it.
Something else that's kind of a niche with growers, I guess I want to bring up now and talk about if I can, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Something I've noticed, and I'm sure Larry Webb will agree, and probably even John Sensenig, and well, really any of the DMs for that matter, but on a perennial crop, if you're impressed at all with growers the first year, you should be a lot more impressed with it the following year, because all your perennial crops, generally, besides making the crop for this year that they're trying to produce, they'll also put the nodes or bud spikes on for the following year. And I always tell people when it's their first year, don't give up on me or expect a miracle right away, because a lot of times they really don't see the success until the second year. That's not always true, but it's kind of interesting. I've always noticed that when they use this product, that the following year is more impressive than the first year, just because of that extra budding or bloom spikes or nodes that the perennial crop will put on for the following year. So, you know, I noticed that to be a big advantage. Usually not always, a lot of people expect a miracle the first year they use it. And I noticed with perennials that sometimes it's the following year that really wakes up and starts to work well.
Mm.
I mean, it'll do good the first year, don't get me wrong, but if you don't notice it right away, the second year should impress you. I tell people that all the time, and they've seen that. Several of my guys have seen that.
Mm-hmm. It's important to get it established well in the first year, right? So it can be successful the next year, which good rooting system and everything, growers would be a huge help for that.
Well, I'll give you an example. I got 2 strawberry guys side by side, and the one wasn't very happy with us. He started putting some dry on, and that kind of hurt my feelings. And the other guy who just up the road was using it too. And I asked him on his strawberries. Well, the first guy told me the first year his strawberries really didn't do very good. Like they plant them one year and then the following year they would go into harvest. So the second guy, I stopped in there and asked him, and they were both doing the lime, as far as putting on excessive amounts, I guess you can say. They both were doing that. Because just following recommendations and seeing what kind of quality they were getting out of the berries. But that was my first experience. The second guy, when I got talking to him, he said, if you really want good strawberries, you got to spray them throughout the summer when they're not doing nothing. And I said, yeah. I said, I guess that makes sense. Well, when I talked to the first guy, that's when he was putting his phosphorus fertilizer on, was through the summer when they weren't doing nothing. And, I got thinking, well, it just makes sense. That guy's feeding the other guy was feeding that crop through the summer with phosphorus when it wasn't doing anything. And he was actually getting more strawberries the first year than the first guy that was putting the dry on. So the first guy that wasn't liking our results the first year, he would never use the growers until it would get into spring. And then he would start loading the plant up. And then after the strawberries were done, he'd quit.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the second guy, he told me when he was out spraying his hay, he always took one pass up through the strawberry patch. And he was getting the strawberries. Not only was he getting the strawberries a good crop the first year, but his strawberries was lasting longer.
Yeah. So they were both putting product out over the summer. It was just a difference in what was being used.
Well, the one guy, yes. The one guy, he was actually loading it up heavy in the spring. And then as soon as the strawberries was done, he never went back out there and did any more the rest of the year. Where the second guy, he would spray them after the strawberries was done, and he had a lot more success with the crop. And he wasn't putting a tremendous amount on, but he was still spraying it through the summer when that strawberry wasn't doing anything. It actually was doing something, but I mean, not producing fruit. It was putting on next year's buds or spikes. Yeah.
Thanks,
What
Mike.
about growers, straight growers, just growers on no water?
Straight growers?
Yes, just straight growers and no water. Would that work, or does that burn?
No, that was I'll give my answer and then you guys can pipe in. That was the norm for quite a few years when the company was formed. It's only when spare volumes have had to go higher that people have been adding water to it. So yeah, it's perfectly safe to do that.
We've been doing it 45 years now. We always try and spray it straight if we can. Yeah, like the alfalfa and even the soybeans, 2 to 3 gallons per acre. You got to put the smaller tips in, but you got to make sure you get the finer screen in the tank and the finer screen in the tips to make sure it don't be clogging up for you. But no, you can make a lot more time, and I think it does a better job just by fogging it on straight.
Okay. What about water treatment? Your pH.
Well, if you
To drop the pH, you should probably put a water treatment in, so it's available to the plant or not.
Yeah, you want to have soft water, and the best way to check that is take a gallon of your water and put 1 cup of grower, 8 ounces of growers in there, and if it stays crystal clear, you're good to go. If it's cloudy, then you gotta put some acidifier in there. We all just use apple cider vinegar; it does a good job. And but if you're a small vegetable farmer, whatever you're doing, just if you can collect some rainwater, that's the ideal thing to use. Then you don't have to worry about it. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, rainwater, RO water, are your best bets if you have access. But acidifying hard water will work as well. Yeah.
Okay.
We have people bought stuff. Well, Jim Holbein was with me, a guy up here, bought some stuff to treat his water, and it actually made the situation worse with the treatment he had with the water he was getting. So you got to watch what you buy.
Yeah.
And we've sprayed it on just straight growers too for many years. We actually did the spraying it on straight and doing the 1 part growers, 1 part hard water before. We've done that over the years.
Yeah, the hard water becomes a problem when you have more water than growers. But if you can keep more growers than water, then it's not as much of an issue.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost at the end of our time. If there's any other questions, pipe up now. Or if any of our DMs have anything last thing that they want to say.
I'd like to know how many gallons to the acre in an orchard for frost protection.
Yeah, they call for like 2 gallon an acre, but that can be kind of tricky to do. I've got guys doing 50 to 1. There's people, if you can get it to like a gallon an acre, there's just so many different scenarios with that. I think the book calls for 2 gallon an acre for every application. I do a 80 to 1 in my orchard, and it's worked very well. I've got people that do a 50 to 1. I do, some guys do a gallon to the acre.
I had a guy call me today and said, or yesterday, and he said he put 3 gallons to the acre for freeze protection. So I didn't know. That's, well, he mixes 3 gallons of water and 3 gallons of growers.
The cold helps him there with not burning the plant.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one guy we did the story on, I think he was doing, high rates like that and had success. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was 2 or 3 gallon on.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Loren, Mike, Larry, John, and Daniel. Quite a bit. It was a great call. Our next conference call will be on April 14th, again at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So we hope to see you then. And thank you to each of our DMs for coming on and for everybody who piped up and participated. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, good night. Good night. Thanks for calling.